The massive alien ship floated silently above Earth like a dark cloud blocking the sun. Commander Velthak stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching the small blue planet spin slowly below him. His four eyes studied the world with cold interest. This was just another day for the Kethver Empire, another planet to conquer, another species to rule. "What do we know about them?" Velthak asked his officer. "They call themselves humans, Commander. They live on one planet but fight each other in many small countries. Their weapons are very old, maybe 700 years behind us." Velthak's insect-like mouth made a clicking sound. He was pleased. Around his ship, blue energy shields glowed brightly. These shields had protected the Kethver for 3,000 years. No enemy had ever broken through them. Not once. The shields were proof that the Kethver were meant to rule. The galaxy, far below on Earth, Dr. Kim Dae-ho sat in his office at the Seoul Observatory. Numbers and charts covered his computer screen. The readings made no sense. Huge objects had appeared at the edge of space without warning. Their energy was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Kim Dae-ho had always feared this day would come. He was the head of Earth's science team for the Global Defense Initiative. His job was to watch for threats from space. The biggest threat possible was here. Dr. Kim. His assistant Park Mine ran into the room. Her face was white with fear. "We're getting a message from them. They're speaking in Korean, in English, and Chinese, all at the same time." Kim Dae-ho felt his heart sink. If the aliens could speak all human languages perfectly, they had been watching Earth for a long time. They knew everything about humans. The message played on every radio and television on Earth. The voice was cold and mechanical. "Humans of the third planet will join the Kethver Empire. If you fight us, we will destroy you. You have 24 hours to surrender." Around the world, people stopped what they were doing. Leaders rushed to emergency meetings. Soldiers prepared for war. Scientists like Kim Dae-ho tried to understand what they were facing in New York. President Kim Soo-jin of the Korean Federation stood before the United Nations. The hall was packed with world leaders who had flown in from every country. Fear filled the air, but also something else. Determination. "My fellow humans, President," Kim said, her voice steady and strong. "For hundreds of years we have fought each other. We have had wars over land, over resources, over ideas. Today, we face something bigger than all of us. Today, we must choose to fight together or die together." The hall erupted in voices as leaders spoke in many languages. But the message was the same everywhere. Earth would not surrender without a fight. Back on the Eternal Dominion. Commander Velthak watched the human response with amusement through their radio signals. He could hear the humans preparing for war. They were gathering their primitive weapons and making brave speeches. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are moving their military forces. They appear to be preparing for battle." Velthak clicked his mandibles again. "Foolish creatures, they do not understand what they face. Our shields have never been broken. Our empire has never been defeated. This will be no different." The Kethver had conquered hundreds of worlds. Every species eventually learned the same lesson. When you cannot hurt your enemy, you must surrender or die. The blue shields that surrounded every Kethver ship were impossible to break. They absorbed energy weapons. They deflected solid projectiles. They were perfect protection. On Earth, Kim Dae-ho worked frantically in his laboratory. He studied every piece of data about the alien ships, their energy patterns, their shield frequencies, their weapon signatures. There had to be a weakness. There was always a weakness. Dr. Kim Park-Mine said quietly, "What if we can't stop them? What if their shields really are impossible to break?" Kim Dae-ho looked up from his computer. Outside the window, he could see people in the streets. Some were running in panic. Others were helping their neighbors. Children played in parks while their parents watched the sky with worried eyes. "Then we find a way to make the impossible possible," he said. "We're human. That's what we do." The 24-hour deadline approached. Kethver ships moved closer. To Earth, their shields glowed brighter, ready for the pathetic resistance they expected. Commander Velthak prepared for another easy victory. But in laboratories and military bases across Earth, Humans worked through the night. They studied, they planned. They prepared for a war that seemed impossible to win. The Kethfer had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their shields were their pride, their proof of divine right to rule. They had never faced an enemy that could threaten them. They had never faced humanity. As the deadline passed and the first human ships launched into space, both sides prepared for a battle that would change everything. The Kethfer expected another easy conquest. The humans expected to die fighting. Neither side knew that this war would end with the impossible becoming reality. The space around Mars looked like a graveyard. Pieces of broken human ships floated in the darkness, spinning slowly among the stars. Admiral Lee Taman floated in his escape pod, watching the alien fleet move past him like giant metal mountains. 3 hours earlier, he had commanded 200 ships. Now only 50 remained, running back toward Earth with their weapons empty and their hulls burning. The battle had been a disaster, but it had also been exactly what Lee Taman wanted. All ships, weapons free, he had ordered from the bridge of the Indomitable. His flagship was Earth's newest and strongest warship, but compared to the alien vessels, it looked like a toy boat facing ocean liners. The Kethfer ships came forward slowly, their blue shields shimmering around hulls, size of cities. They moved like they had all the time in the world, and why not? They had never lost a battle. Lee Taman watched his missiles race toward the enemy. Nuclear warheads that could destroy mountains struck the alien shields and simply vanished. The energy was absorbed like water into a sponge. Laser beams that could cut through steel bent around the barriers, like light through water. Then the aliens fired back. Their weapons were beams of red light that passed through human shields like they were made of air. The Indomitable shook. As energy tore through its hull, around him Lee Taman watched ship after ship explode in brilliant flashes. "Admiral?" His communications officer shouted over the alarms. "You're losing everything. The shields aren't working." "Keep recording," Lee Taman shouted back. "I want every sensor on those alien ships. It's every frequency, every energy pattern. Everything." The battle lasted 8 minutes. When it was over, most of Earth's fleet was gone. But every second had been recorded and transmitted back to Earth. As his ship died around him, Lee Taman smiled. The real battle was just beginning. Deep beneath the city of Busan, Dr. Song Hyren stared at her computer screen. The data from the Mars battle filled dozens of monitors around her laboratory. Her eyes were red from not sleeping, but she couldn't stop looking at the numbers. Hyren, her partner Dr. Cho Woo-song, said gently, "You've been working for 18 hours. Maybe you should rest." "No," she said, pointing at the screen. "Look at this, right here. When our missiles hit their shields, something happens." Woo-song moved closer. The graph showed the alien shield energy over time. For most of the battle, it was a steady line. But at the moment of each missile impact, there was a tiny spike. "The shields don't just stop our weapons," Hyren explained. "They absorb the energy and spread it around their whole ship. But for just a tiny moment, the whole system shakes, like hitting a bell," Woo-song said slowly. "The whole thing rings for a moment, exactly. And if we could hit it at just the right frequency, at just the right time, ... They looked at each other. It was impossible. But it was also the only hope humanity had. Above them, the war was going badly. The Kethber moved through the solar system like a slow tide, destroying everything in their path. Mars colonies stopped responding to radio calls. The asteroid mining stations went silent one by one. Each victory made the aliens more confident. Commander Velthak stood on his bridge, watching another human outpost surrender. The small space station had tried to fight with mining lasers and construction robots. It had been almost sad to watch. "These humans are braver than most species," he said to his tactical officer. "When we ruled the Zilani, they surrendered before. We even landed. But these creatures keep fighting even when they know they cannot win." "Perhaps they are too stupid to understand their situation," the officer replied. Velthok made his clicking sound. "Perhaps, but their courage will serve us. Well, when they become our servants." Brave slaves are often the most useful. The Kethfer had conquered the galaxy by being patient. They moved slowly, but never stopped. Their shields made them invincible so they could take their time. Every species eventually learned that fighting was useless. But in her laboratory, Song Hyrin was discovering something the Kethver had never considered. Their shields were perfect, but perfection sometimes had unexpected weaknesses. Look at this pattern, she told Wusong. Every time we hit them, their shields ring like a bell. But what if we could make them ring so hard they broke? The power requirements would be enormous, Wusong said. We'd need to hit them with something that could match their own energy output. Hyrin was quiet for a long moment, and she smiled. What if we didn't fight their shields? What if we made their shields fight themselves? As the Kethver fleet moved closer to Earth, two very different groups of people were working through the night. The aliens prepared for another easy victory, certain that their perfect shields would protect them as they always had. The humans prepared for the impossible, knowing that their only chance was to find a way to turn the enemy's strength against itself. Neither side knew that the next battle would change everything. Dr. Song Hyrin's eyes burned like fire. She had not slept for 3 days and 3 nights. Empty coffee cups covered her desk, and her clothes were wrinkled and stained. Around her, the underground laboratory buzzed with desperate activity as her team worked to save humanity. On the big screen, red dots showed the Kethver fleet moving closer to Earth. They had taken Jupiter's moons yesterday. Today they would reach Mars' orbit. Tomorrow, they would be at Earth's doorstep. Professor, you need to sleep, said Dr. Cho Wusung, looking worried. You'll collapse if you keep this up. Sleep is for people who aren't trying to save the world, Hyrin replied, staring at the alien shield data. The numbers made no sense. The Kethver shields were perfect, too perfect. There had to be a weakness, but she couldn't find it. In the corner of the lab, Park Jin-woo sat quietly at his computer. He was the youngest scientist on the team, barely 25 years old. While the older scientists worked on complex theories, Jin-woo was drawing simple pictures on his tablet. What if we're thinking about this wrong? He said suddenly. Everyone stopped working. Jin-woo was shy and rarely spoke during meetings. But when he did talk, his ideas were usually interesting. What do you mean? Hyrin asked. Jin-woo stood up nervously. Well, we keep trying to break through their shields with more power, but what if we don't break them? What if we make them break themselves? He walked to the big screen and showed his drawings. They looked like simple wave patterns, the kind children draw when they learn about sound. The shields work by creating waves that cancel out our attacks, Jin-woo explained. But waves can do more than cancel. They can also amplify. If we could create the exact opposite wave at the exact right moment, Hyrin's eyes went wide. The shields would amplify our signal instead of canceling it. Like feedback from a microphone, Wusung added, understanding. The shield system would create a loop, getting stronger and stronger until ... Until it tears itself apart, Hyrin finished. She grabbed Jinwoo's shoulders. You brilliant boy, you've done it. The theory was beautiful in its simplicity. Instead of fighting the shields, they would trick the shields into fighting themselves. But turning the theory into reality would be almost impossible. We need to create quantum resonance fields, Hyrin said, pacing around the lab. Fields that can match the alien technology perfectly. Then we need to put those fields into weapons. That can survive space combat. We need to time everything perfectly, or it won't work. And we need to do it in less than 48 hours, Wusong added grimly. Above them, General Yoon Song-ho sat in his command bunker, watching Earth's defenses crumble. The Kethver had destroyed the outer space stations without effort. His remaining ships were old and weak, leftovers from the first battle that had been too damaged to fight. Yes, sir, his aide Lieutenant Kim reported. We're getting a strange request from Dr. Song's team. They want access to our entire nuclear arsenal. Looked up from his battle plans. Our nuclear weapons? What for? They want to modify the warheads. They say they have a new weapon design, but they need our most powerful bombs to make it work. Song-ho was quiet for a moment. If the scientists failed, those bombs might be the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. Give them everything, he decided. Every warhead, every missile, every nuclear device we have. If the scientists can't save us, nothing can. In the laboratory, Hiron's team worked like their lives depended on it, because they did. They took apart nuclear warheads and rebuilt them with quantum resonance generators. They wrote computer programs to calculate the exact frequency needed to destroy each alien ship. They designed new missiles that could deliver their weapons at precisely the right moment. Will it work? Asked Park Manet, who had been transferred from the observatory to help with the project. I don't know, Hiron admitted. We're trying. To break technology we don't understand using science we invented yesterday, but it's the only chance we have. The work continued through the night. Engineers and scientists worked side by side, building weapons that had never existed before. Military officers helped design delivery systems for bombs that worked in ways no one fully understood. As dawn approached, the first prototype was ready. It looked like a normal missile, but inside was Jin Woo's brilliant idea made real. A quantum resonance field generator that could turn the enemy's perfect shields into their own destruction. One shot, Hiron said, holding the device. We get one shot to test this. If it doesn't work, we won't have time to build another. Outside, the Kethfer fleet moved closer to Earth. Commander Velthak stood on his bridge, confident in his shields and certain of victory. He had no idea that far below a young scientist had found the key to destroying what had never been destroyed. The final battle was coming, and everything would depend on whether human ingenuity could overcome alien perfection. The sun rose over Earth as the final battle began. Admiral Lee Taman stood on the bridge of his damaged cruiser, watching the massive Kethfer fleet approach. His ship had barely survived the Mars battle, held together with emergency repairs and desperate hope. All ships, prepare for song protocol, he said into his radio. His voice was calm, but his hands shook slightly. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly, knowing they were about to die. Lee Taman had only 50 ships left. The Kethfer had over 300. His vessels were old and damaged. Theirs were perfect and untouchable. By every measure, this battle was already over. But hidden inside 12 of his ships were Dr. Song Hiron's quantum resonance weapons. Humanity's entire nuclear arsenal had been converted into these experimental bombs. If they worked, Earth might survive. If they failed, everyone would die. Remember, Lee Taman broadcast on the secret channel, we only get one chance. Make it count. The Kethfer ships moved forward like a wall of death. Their blue shields glowed brightly, ready to absorb any attack. Commander Velthak stood on his flagship, watching the pathetic human fleet approach. Look at them, he said to his officers. 50 broken ships against our armada. They must know they cannot win. Perhaps they seek an honorable death, his tactical officer suggested. There is no honor in stupidity, Velthak replied. But their courage will be remembered when we rule their world. The battle began with a roar of weapons fire. Kethfer energy beams lanced out, striking human ships and tearing them apart. The Defender exploded in a ball of fire. The Liberty broke in half, its crew dying in the cold of space. One by one, Earth's ships were destroyed. Lee Taman watched his fleet die and felt sick. These were good people, brave people, dying for a plan that might not work. But he had to trust Dr. Song's science. He had to believe that human cleverness could beat alien perfection. Admiral, his weapons officer shouted. We're losing the courage and the determination. Hold formation, Lee Taman ordered. Make them think we're retreating. It looked like a rout. The human ships scattered as alien fire destroyed them. Some tried to run. Others spun helplessly with their engines dead. The Kethfer pressed forward, eager to finish the battle. Commander Velthak smiled as he watched the humans flee. Primitive fools, he said. Their courage exceeds their wisdom. But Lee Taman had learned from the Mars disaster. The retreat was fake. As his ships scattered, they moved into a careful pattern around the Kethfer fleet. Hidden among the debris of truly destroyed vessels, 12 ships waited with their special weapons ready. This is Admiral Lee, he whispered into his radio. Song protocol is now active. For Mars colony, for Earth, for humanity.
12 ships powered up their quantum resonance weapons.
Inside each bomb, Jinwoo's brilliant idea had been turned into reality. Computers calculated the exact frequency needed to make each alien shield destroy itself. Targeting systems locked onto the largest Kethfer ships. "Fire," Lee Taman said quietly. The weapons looked like ordinary missiles as they flew toward the enemy. Commander Velthak barely noticed them. His shields had stopped thousands of human missiles. These would be no different. The first missile reached the Kethfer flagship. It struck the blue shield and seemed to disappear, just like all the others. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shield began to flicker. What? Velthok stared at his displays. "Report. What is happening to our shields?" "Unknown malfunction, Commander," his engineer replied. "The shield generators are overloading." The quantum resonance field had done its work. Instead of being absorbed, the weapon had created a feedback loop. The shield was amplifying its own energy. It's growing stronger and stronger until it could no longer contain itself. The shield collapsed. In a burst of blue light, for the first time in 3,000 years, a Kethfer ship was defenseless. "Impossible," Velthok breathed. Then human weapons struck his hull across the alien fleet. The same thing was happening. Shield after shield flickered and failed as the quantum resonance weapons did their work. Ships that had been invincible for millennia suddenly found themselves vulnerable. The psychological impact was devastating. Kethfer warriors who had never known defeat began to panic. Their perfect shields, their proof of divine right to rule, were crumbling. "All ships, attack now," Lee Taman shouted. "Their shields are down." The remaining human ships turned and charged. Their weapons, which had been useless minutes before, now tore through alien hulls. The mighty Kethfer fleet, masters of the galaxy, began to burn. In her laboratory far below, Dr. Song Hyren watched the battle on her screens. Tears ran down her face as she saw the impossible happening. Her weapons were working. Brilliant idea had turned the enemy's strength into weakness. "It's working," she whispered. "By all the laws of physics, it's actually working." The tide of battle had turned. The shields that had been the Kethfer's pride were now their downfall. And in the wreckage of space, humanity had proven that even the impossible could be overcome. With courage and cleverness, the news traveled faster than light across the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, in 1,000,000 cities, the impossible message spread like wildfire. The Kethfer shields had failed. The invincible empire was no longer invincible. "Commander." Velthak floated in his escape pod, watching his burning flagship drift through space. Around him, the wreckage of the once mighty Kethfer fleet spun slowly among the stars. His perfect shields were gone. His invincible ships were destroyed. His 3,000-year-old empire was crumbling. "Commander," his communications officer called from another pod, "we're receiving messages from across the empire. The subject worlds are. They're rebelling." Velthok closed his 4 eyes. He had expected this. Fear had kept the empire together. When that fear was gone, everything would fall apart. On the planet Velanor, the first world conquered by the Kethfer, an old woman named Zara stood before a crowd of her people. She had been born under alien rule. Her parents had been slaves. Her children had served the empire. But today everything changed. "The shields are broken," she shouted, her voice carrying across the city square. "The Kethfer can be defeated. We are free." The crowd roared. For 3,000 years they had bowed to their alien masters. Today, they would bow no more. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Zephyrian mining guilds, who had dug metals from their mountains for Kethfer ships, destroyed their equipment, and declared themselves free.
Ow.
The Taurian Federation, forced to provide food for the Empire, announced their independence. World after world rose up. The Empire that had ruled through strength found itself powerless when its strength was proven false. In the ruins of his fleet, Commander Velthak received an emergency transmission from the Kethfer High Council. The message was brief and devastating. "Negotiate immediate surrender with the humans. This is not a request. This is an order." Velthik stared at the message in disbelief. "This is impossible," he transmitted back. "We are the hegemony. We do not surrender to lesser species. We have ruled for 3,000 years. The response came quickly, and it was final. The humans have shown they can destroy our shields. If you do not make peace with them, there will be no hegemony left to rule. Every world is rebelling. Every fleet is in retreat. Surrender now, or watch our civilization die." For the first time in his life, Commander Velthak felt true fear. It's not fear of death, but fear of the end of everything he had believed in. The Kethver were supposed to be the chosen ones, the destined rulers of the galaxy. How could they lose to a species that had barely learned to travel between stars? On Earth, President Kim Soo-jin stood in the United Nations building, looking out at the representatives of every human nation. Just days ago, these same people had been preparing for extinction. They were preparing for something no one had expected. "Victory, Madam President," her aide whispered. "The Kethver delegation is requesting permission to land. They want to discuss ... terms." Kim Soo-jin almost laughed. The aliens who had given humanity 24 hours to surrender were now begging for mercy. The mighty empire that had ruled the galaxy was asking permission to land on Earth. "Tell them they can come," she said. "But they come as defeated enemies, not as conquerors." The Kethver delegation arrived in a small, damaged ship. Commander Velthak himself led the group, his proud bearing replaced by the slumped posture of defeat. He had never imagined he would walk on an alien world as a supplicant. The meeting took place in the same United Nations Hall, where humanity had decided to fight rather than surrender. Now the roles were reversed. The Kethver sat at the table like prisoners, while human leaders decided their fate. "We offer you tribute," Velthik said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Technology, resources, knowledge. We will give you anything you want." President Kim Soo-jin looked at the alien commander who had once demanded Earth's surrender. "We don't want your tribute," she said firmly. "We want something else. We want your promise that no species will ever again face the choice between submission and extinction." Velthak's mandibles clicked in confusion. You do not want to rule us?" "We want to be left alone," Kim Soo-jin replied. "We want to live in peace. But we also want to make sure that when the next empire rises, thinking they are invincible, they remember what happened to the last one." Across the galaxy, the news of the peace treaty spread as quickly as the news of the shield failures had. Humanity had won not through conquest, but through proving that the impossible was possible. Dr. Song Hyrin sat in her laboratory, reading reports from across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for millennia were now free. The Kethver Empire was collapsing, not from human attack, but from the realization that their perfection had been an illusion. Park Jin-woo, the young scientist whose idea had saved humanity, stood beside her. "Professor," he said quietly, "what do we do now?" Hyrin looked up at the stars visible through her window. Human ships now patrolled space alongside vessels from dozens of liberated worlds. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the center of that change. "We make sure this never happens again," she said. "We make sure that the next time someone claims to be invincible, the galaxy remembers what happened to the Kethver." The shields that had been their pride were gone. The empire built on fear had crumbled, and in its place, something new was beginning. A galaxy where strength was measured not by invincibility, but by the courage to stand against impossible odds.